must answer. What are you laughing at?
Nothing. Just 7 questions.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, Jody doesn't know
Sorry.
this. Sorry. Well, I don't know. I could feel her laughing. So there are 7 questions, and you must answer these. If you, I mean, to be successful, these things actually have to be answered. I don't think there's any doubt at all about that. So let's think of them, but first think about them. But first, I want to actually just talk about the value of questions. So way back in our parenting book on the absolute quickest way to help your child change, um, I talk a lot about questions. Then I've talked about them all my life. I was one of those kids that had a lot of questions, and I learned the power of them because a question, it's kind of, one of my mentors would say, a tension resolution type system. And as such, it is, oh, how would I describe it? It's points you in the right direction every time, or it points you in a given direction. So no matter the question you ask, it's going to turn out to really direct uh, the nature of what you're actually going to look for and see. So let's just take something like math. If you keep asking the question, why does this child hate math? Why does this child resist doing math? Those kind of questions, they take you in a direction of an answer that says, well, here are the reasons they don't like it. It's doesn't match their zodiac sign. It's not their karma. I don't know. It could be anything. That question goes in that direction for an explanation to support or explain why they don't like math. And that's not exactly bad. I might come back to that in a sec. But asking a question like, how can I get them to enjoy math? How can I get them to love math? How can I get them to conquer math? How can I get them to tolerate math? That takes you in yet a different direction. Now, honestly, the first question isn't bad if you don't stop there. I would say it differently. I would say, why does it make sense to my child to hate math? What is going on? And I'd find out from them. Why does it make sense to you? I'm not asking why do you hate it. It's more pointed. Why does it make sense to you to not like math, to resent math? You know, because the answer should be something like, because if I resist enough, I'll never have to do it. And if they don't come up with that, you can suggest, is that what you're thinking? That like you'll never have to do math? If you can resist right now, you'll never have to do it in your life, you know? And getting them to see that would be a big help. But how can I get them to enjoy it? Well, you can get them to enjoy it, and you'll start thinking clearly by giving them an amount they can do, building on their confidence, making sure they're really learning it. I think learning the your math facts before you do math is huge, because then they're not caught like I am on occasion and going, what's 8 times? I didn't learn them, exactly. I learned a few. I should go back and knock them out. But it's just a distraction, so it doesn't build confidence in that exact area, as it were. So that's what the power of questions is. And what I want to offer is that there are 7 questions that you must answer for successful homeschool, and you might want to revisit them. These questions are actually somewhat universal, so they can apply to different things, whatever you want to apply them to. But they're really strategic. They're in fact so famous. There was a poem written about them. Well, at least 6 of them. And so the questions are who, what, when, where, why, and how. Now, there's a 7th question, and I'll get to it. So it works like this: who? All right, who regarding homeschool? Who are we homeschooling? What are the kids? What are they like? Who's going to help with homeschool? Right? Who's going to be responsible for the homeschool? There are a lot of who's. Who's going to keep up with the data, the information? For us, it was the kids. For you, it might be you. I mean, we overlooked it. But all the who's involved in anything, you want to really understand that. Just like when you're reading a book, you really want to know who are the characters and what are they about. So in homeschooling, if you don't think clearly about who, you're not gonna you're not gonna actually design it properly. You're not going you're gonna leave out stuff, or you're gonna have assumptions, etc. You know, and even thing knowing that who you've got there is a, let's say, a 10-year-old. You don't want to expect either 6-year-old or a 17-year-old stuff from them. You need to know who is engaged. Number two, what? You can throw anything you want to in here.
Yep.
So what? That's going to turn out to, what is homeschool? What is our goal? What is it that we hope to accomplish from this? What um, are our basic principles and standards? What are we up to? But what more, I'd say more specifically, what is our homeschool about? Ours was about uh, developing independent learners. So we were trying to teach the kids, or teaching the kids to learn to teach themselves. This is part of what, when you get into debates and discussions with public school teachers, I was just in Los Angeles on a debate that'll be out between public and homeschool. And one of the things I noticed they had in their mind, the public school folks said teachers alone were qualified to teach. And they have an assumption that kids can't learn unless you teach them. And our thing we've mentioned is you're the chief learning officer. You want to cause them to learn. You're creating the environment. You're not necessarily having to be an expert on all this information. That's how they have to think, and they pitch it. All you have to do is provide the opportunity for the right environment, the right materials, right information for a child to learn, because they can learn. You can tell they can run their phone better than you can run yours if you give them any chance at all. And it's not like they took a class on it. So there's the what. So when are we going to homeschool? A lot of people don't answer this question. It's like, well, when is as we can, as the opportunity shows up. You're going to find it's not going to work as well. It's just like if you're the kind of church member that goes when we can, you're not a very good church member. That's not how it works. You get over the decision and you go, we're going every Sunday, unless it's meet Sundays. We're going every Sunday unless something literally stops us, like we're sick or something, serious that has to stop us. So that nature of when is something we need to really nail down. When is this happening? It, to some degree, will have when will we stop? When will they be finished? Not only in the day, but even in their whole time of homeschooling. Because some people we're going to do it up through middle school. We're going to do it all the way to the end. We're going to do it in this transition for these first 3 grades. We have some friends that in the context of their life, he was a trucker for that moment and basically took all the family, 4 girls or something like that, on the road. Remember that? And homeschooled them on the road. So
that would be, yeah.
That would be.
Let me get into the where too.
Yeah, that. So yeah. So where? We move on. Who, what, when, where? Where's this going to happen? What part of the room? Are they in their separate rooms? Is it our house? Is it in some other contacts? Is it a library, community? I don't know what you may have, but you actually want to figure that out, and that'll lead to thinking about how to make that room, we'll say, functional, or that context. Maybe it's around the kitchen table, but understanding the where, in combination with the rest of it, really affects how you set it up, how you organize it. And so, do you close the windows or leave them open, or the shades, or like Jody used to do, need to put a cardboard between the two boys so they won't make faces at each other or something like that. Um, but the where is the circumstance, the situation. You want to give thought to that because it can affect things a lot. If you set up, if they're in uh chairs to keep, I don't know, folding in half, it's hard to focus on school. So even in this, where is the situation, the context, and you want to think through the details of that. And sometimes that's ease of use of having erasers nearby or staplers or whatever, the stuff, colors, I don't know, pens, this, that, and yon. Why? This is probably more important than you think because this is what sustains you over time. Why homeschool? Why um, are we doing this? What is the motive, the reasoning? In other words, I'd say it this way: why does it make sense? Why does it just make sense to you to homeschool in your context? And by the way, the what the homeschool is could be that can include classical conversations. It can include some co-op or some, the way you want to think about it, but you need to make sure you thought about it. Back to why. Uh, why does it make sense to you? And that could be the nature of the schools. It could, the options. It could indeed be, actually, with us, it was the goals we had for the kids, what we were aiming for them. I didn't feel like, I couldn't pay everything in the world for 5 kids and give them the best of the best. But what I could do is equip them to be able to study and learn well, and I could equip them to do some entrepreneurship. And so that's the game. And they figured out largely how to pay for school and do life, and they're on into life and doing but I think most anybody's standards really well. So figuring out that why are we doing this is going to be crucial. And if you are let's say married, you have this why needs to be united. We really ideally need to share some of the same reasons. I just don't want my babies to leave school. I mean, to leave the home. And the other one says, well, I want them to be equipped to leave home. So you have two different whys, and those whys will drive what we're trying to do, you know. So we can drive them to be independent, maybe too fast, but we can also, it can drive us to do schooling in such a way they aren't really learning, what you want them to, because it keeps them dependent on you. So you need to sort that out. No guarantees in that, there's so many moving parts in the why, but I'm just saying you want to think that through. So who, what, when, where, why, and then how. And there we are with curriculum and sequence and what is it that we're doing for school, and the how is going to be related to the outcome. So what do you want to happen, and what kind of things do we need to do to make it happen? For us, it was somewhat simple. We wanted them really to understand reading, writing, and math. And then we supplemented in things for some balance, but also for state requirements and prep for college. So language was in there and
Yeah.
other things. But in our mind, as we kind of settled on the Robinson curriculum and then tweaked it by writing a writing course for it rather than just write. As we looked at that, the basic logic of it was reading, writing, and math. And the reason is, look, reading gives you access to all the great minds of history and in the moment. So you actually have something that can be magical for you. And don't underestimate how learning to read helps you process even audio, podcasts, whatever you might listen to, because learning to make sense of information is what that reading does. It really develops and affects your brain. The arithmetic, math, one, it teaches you about right and wrong, absolutes. It's the answer is 20, not 17. So you learn about that, but it's also the language of science. So learning to read English in our context is the language of knowledge, basically, and communication interaction. Mathematics, arithmetic is the language of science. So it preps for those that might want to go into STEM work or in just logic and problem solving. So it's developing a skill that has benefits actually when you look at a broken piece of machinery that's not exactly math, but sort of kind of is. Writing itself is the third thing, reading, writing, and math, is a little bit of the more advanced game because what writing is doing is it's making you think and making you think in clear ways because you're writing and go, well, that doesn't make sense. Plus, it's developing and improving your ability to communicate. So using what you've learned and working with other people is strategic in life. If you don't learn to communicate, you can't set let te not have way teach people, you know. So you really want to I think have those three things. And our thinking was if they have that, and then they've learned how to sit and look at something and say, I don't feel like it, but do it anyway. Or they can really build in their ability to go, I didn't understand this and I figured it out, and I figured it out, and I figured it out. So that orientation that they have of I can teach myself anything is going to be huge for their lives. So who, what, when, where, why, and how. And here's the last one. Have you decided? See, there's this thing that happens where we kind of like we can intend burglary, we can attempt burglary, or we can commit burglary. And I'm not recommending any of those, but as an illustration, they're not even levels, they're different kinds of intention. And homeschool is not really something to try. Most things aren't. I'll give it a try. Like I'll try marriage, see how that goes. Yeah. So, well, I'll try that. We'll see what it's like. And certain things don't allow, I'll try college, you know. Um, that kind of orientation, there may be a place for it to see if you like it. Like we're going to try Taekwondo for you for 6 weeks, and then we're going to see where you are. So sometimes you have to do that, but your goal is still to get to a commitment, and a commitment or decision means that we've concluded that this is what we're going to do, and so then the question is how we're going to figure it out. If you question it day in and day out, you're going to drive yourself bananas. I remember my mother, she was like the second female car salesperson in the state of Alabama. So she was in a smaller town towards the Georgia border, towards Atlanta. And there's a lady in Birmingham, I think, that was first, and she was like second. But she was doing this, working for this Volvo dealership. And mother, she's doing this, and we talk regularly. How's it going, etc. It's wearing me out. I don't know if I want to do this. I don't know. It's too much work. It's too hard. I don't know if I can learn all that. Whatever she was saying. And I finally said, Mom, why don't we set a date in the future, like 3 months out, and literally pick a date and put it on our calendars, and then we'll evaluate whether you want to do it or not. But if you do it, if you constantly question yourself every day, it'd be like testing your heartbeat. If you if you check your heartbeat all the time, it'll make your heart race because you need a break from that. You need a point in time to look at it and then to say decide or not. And by the way, she got there, and I don't know if we met or not, but she finally quit questioning it and just did the work, and they got to a place when it said, I can do this and I want to. It's the same with homeschool. If you're not yet convinced, that's fine. Set up the experiment, but set up the experiment so you know when to decide, or go ahead and decide and make it happen. And if you want to revisit it when they get to a certain age, put that on the calendar too. That's fine. But if you don't decide much of anything, how are you going to get better? Or how are you going to really focus on what you need to do? It'll just be a constant negotiation. And you can sort of tell if you decided, because if you don't consistently do the things that are required for it, you probably hadn't decided. Sort of taste and see how it's going, that kind of thing. What do you want to add to all those, the seven
No,
questions?
very, very good. I think I love the why being your how did you work? It's what you're going to come back to that's going to keep you motivated, but that's not the word you use. But I love that. Just like, oh yeah, remember why we're doing this because there's going to
Well,
be
it
some
is
days.
motivation. It is motivation, but
Okay.
it's also going to be part of your focus, your endurance. It's going to organize what you're trying to do. It all plays in there.
Yeah.
That why it makes sense to you.
Right, because
You know.
those hard days, you might go, why am I doing this? Oh yeah, I actually have reasons. And I would even say, um, go do the questions, really spend some time. And we talked about this too before, thinking through these types of things, writing it out. And especially if you and your partner, if there are two of you, are on the same page, but actually having these things in writing to look back on, and then at different points, do we want to tweak how we're doing this or what we're actually doing, or are we sticking with that, or am I accomplishing the why I'm doing this? So I would say to have that journaled out somewhere would be
Yeah,
good.
and that's the reason that's so helpful. Besides reminding you what we've agreed to, it actually turns out that I'm trying to get to. I'm sorry, trying to get to.
See if there are any questions.
Yeah. So it when you write something out, you actually bring it kind of into the real world so you can critique and improve it. Just like any process or list or recipe, once you write it out, you can see where tweaks may need to happen, number of minutes for something or whatever. So getting it in written form is going to help you develop, honestly, a good understanding of how to improve it as well.
Yeah, and if you have done this kind of the brain work with this, then um you're more likely to oh my gosh, I just lost my total train of thought, but it was a really good idea. Oh, I know. It just okay. It saves so much time. You're not sitting there daily going, well, guess we'll start today at 9. Well, I guess you should do your math today because you did your writing yesterday. No, you have it. It helps you set up your systems and saves you so much physical and mental time, energy to this is what we do and this is why we're doing it. And yeah, not thinking through it every day, but and then having these times of going back and looking, okay, how's it going? Are we still on track? Do we need to tweak things? But like I love we've used that give, we'll revisit this. We've used that in so many different ways with the kids and with us. Like, we're going to stick with this schedule and we will revisit this in a month or two to see if it's working for us. Or we're going to do this new thing and we'll revisit it in a couple of weeks to see if it's working. That's been a good little tool for a lot of different areas.
The young ones you have to explain it to. I remember we used that with when we moved 5 hours away from one side of Texas to the other, or one piece of it. 5 hours not enough, but a good portion away by Texas standards, almost in the neighborhood. But we said, if we all hate this, we can revisit it in a year, and we all hate this, and we can figure out, even as a family, if we want to be somewhere else or do something else. Which I was sincere about. However, the then 5-year-old kept bringing it up every few days, like checking your pulse. And I had to explain, no, it's in a year. It happens anyway.
Oh,
So what kind of questions are moms having at a few weeks out from homeschool beginning. What's
Hmm,
going in their head?
probably when are we going to start? Do we have all the curriculum? Has it come in if we've ordered it? Uh, how am I going to get these kids to wake up early? I've been letting them sleep in all year.
All summer.
Yeah, sorry, all summer. Uh, those kinds of things. Do I want to wake up? I've been sleeping in. I don't know.
And so how'd you answer those?
Oh man. I think we just would set a date and say, okay, we will all be at this table at 7:30 and this next tomorrow morning or however it was. We weren't big on letting our kids sleep in that much in the summer, but I know a lot of people do. I know I teach an early morning Sunday school class, and it's really been down this summer because people are sleeping in and coming to second service. So I know it's a thing.
Yeah. So, yeah, so deciding that time. All right, gang, we're going to start. In fact, gang, we're going to start. You might even think, this is the day it's going to begin. Got to get everything together. And it's going to begin. Uh, and maybe you're going to make them a special breakfast, French toast or something to launch things, etc.
Yeah.
Yeah, someone just posted Sustainable Motherhood just said, yes, sleeping in
All
around.
around.
Yep. Yeah. So in the sleeping in, generally it leads to staying up later. These things are all connected. And as a rule, strange enough, as a rule, you're much more stable if you just get up at the same time every day. Your life's better, your circadian rhythms work better, etc. Back in the old days, that's kind of how it happened. Sun's up, birds are hollering at you, critters are trying to eat you, however that all works. Yeah, so all those questions, one of the things that I know that homeschool families need to realize is they're not alone. And I don't mean they're not alone and they can certainly school alone. I don't mean that, but they're not alone in the sense that the actual struggles and questions all they have are largely universal. You're not the only one. It's not unique to you. It is something that everybody has to question and think through. And then once you think it through and really know exactly uh, the answer, what makes sense to you from this point on, you don't have to revisit anymore. You've settled it. You've resolved that issue. And that's a strategic thing to do. How do we resolve the issues of when are we going to homeschool? How much progress do they need to make? How are we measuring it? In any version of the who, what, when, where, why, and how, just all the way through, and especially towards decision. I do want to look, you got to have questions or we'll go away because I can't bring all the questions. I know you have some, or you have a friend who has a cousin who has this neighbor with a really good question. So throw it out. It doesn't have to be really good, but I want to say in making decisions, so I'm going to say something that'll be somewhat new or confusing, possibly to some of you, but decisions themselves are largely binary. So it may be a layer of them, but binary means like you're either going to do it or not. That's how it works. You're going to do this or not. You're going to homeschool or not. We're going to homeschool this way or that way. So when you make a decision, what you're trying to do is literally decide on which of the two things is better. That's all you're trying to do. You get it clear to two things and you decide which is better. So even interacting with our kids, let's say they're getting ice cream at some special event, hopefully, not a daily lunch, but they're getting ice cream and it's like chocolate or vanilla. You make your life so much easier. Chocolate or vanilla. Okay. Chocolate. Good. Sprinkles or no sprinkles? Sprinkles. Right. Cone or bowl? Am I going too hard?
No.
They're all binary. But here's what I want you to know. your aim is to make it which one is better of the two. But the moment you decide which is better, you need to understand that you just, because of the relationship, declared the other option bad by its nature. So, and it's not a bad thing, but if you took the worst option of the two, better, worse, and you took it, um, you would be taking the bad option because you had a better one. That's what you have to figure out. And even how we get in homeschool is we decide that homeschooling for our family is better. We don't mean to say that schools are bad, they vary, but that's not it. But for us, it would be a bad decision to school compared to the good decision to homeschool. And it might go the opposite or whatever. And this works on marriage and it works on buying a car and all kinds of stuff. But you want to learn to be honest with yourself about it, because the issue is going to come down to two pieces, and it may be multiples of them, but they're just binary, and one of them's better. And so if you're having a challenge making a decision, I think understanding what's going on, you might be surprised. It actually might help, be my guess. So we've knocked out, half the time. We're available for more, but if we don't have questions, what do we do? I'll go to my handy dandy list and pull out one generic question, but I made this whole thing on questions. Do you have anything you want to add to this story while we're waiting for someone to ask a question? I know there's a delay in the system, but what questions you have about homeschooling and
Or maybe even
life
how to
related,
or even how to make some of these decisions and all. It might sound like, oh yeah, who, what, where, what. It really spend some time. We've said this before, but it really will help your homeschool program in so many ways. It kind of organizes what you're doing, why you're doing it, how you're going to do it. You don't have to think about those things. And then you go for it, and then you set a time to reevaluate it and tweak it. And if needed, use, every semester, or at the end of the spring or whatever. Even with, like, if you've picked a new curriculum, don't decide in week one that you don't like it. Give it some time. And say, okay, I'm going to reevaluate this in 2 months or whatever it might be.
Yeah, so one of the questions on my master list of 100 questions is, how do I begin? How do I begin? That's a common thing people ask. How do I begin? And I'm going to tell you, there's one really important thing to know about beginning. So beginning is going to be answering these questions: who, what, when, where, why, and how. And they and decide, obviously. But the important thing in beginning, you can begin with any curriculum, you can begin with any plan, etc. But the most important thing to do, bar none, is to start simple. You just want to start in a very simple way. And the reason you want to start simple or simply is that reality, where your home is, how you're schooling, neighbors, friends, the flow pattern of your life, work, all that stuff will start informing you how you need to adjust and improve the system. If you spend time trying to figure it all out up front and have a perfect system figured out, you're just going to be frustrated. No strategy's ever been followed in history. No war strategy, not in every detail. It doesn't work that way. It's a game plan, but you have to adjust. And even in games, they have a game plan. You can see, like in football, whole list, laminate, and all the rest. And do you think they just run every play and go through? Like, coach doesn't even need to be there. There are no in-game decisions. I don't think so. So in building any kind of system, especially homeschool, you want to start simple. And that's if you're young and going, that's why things like we're going to have some time drawing, coloring, that's dexterity type stuff. Uh, it's play. They don't quite recognize that, but it's, learning their letters, forming their letters, probably cursive first, easier, um, to do than print. And so in that context, you're getting them ready when they're younger for certain things you're going to do. And then you read to them. That's pretty simple. And then you read to them and stop and get them to tell back some of the story. You should do that with the grandkids. You should read when you read to them, you should say, I'm throwing it out, not should, but here's an idea. But just say, all right, now we're going to do something that I used to do with your mom or dad or whoever it was. And I want you to tell me back this story and just get them to tell you back the grumpus under the rug or something, what happened and then happened and then happened. Because what that review does, it gets their mind ready to start making sense of what they're hearing, learn to actively listen, learn to put things together in a pattern in their brain. Turns out to be unusually helpful, I think. So that how do you begin? You want to start simple with some simple pieces. And even before you're beginning simple, it will develop more complexity, but you want that complexity to make sense as you learn from what's happening around you. If you want to teach someone to cook, I wouldn't start with what's hard, souffles or something, I wouldn't start with if you're in Louisiana, crawdad or crawfish etouffee. I wouldn't start there. I'd probably just start with maybe boiling a few, if that's the thing.
Cooking an egg.
Yeah, something like that. Exactly. Or maybe it's just
pancakes.
Or it's toast. How do you make the toast? Depending on the game. So that's it. All right. I'm hoping you're having fun. I'd like to hear that comment. And this is worthwhile. But if we're not gonna, if I don't have any questions that you're wrestling with, and I know the time of year is part of the problem because you're not immersed in it. When people get immersed in it, the questions come much easier. But we're cheering for you. Anything else you want to say?
You can always send us questions ahead of time, as you think of them.
Yep. And commonly, if you post on these YouTubes, if I get notified, I usually always answer them. If I miss the notification, just post it twice. Because I don't always know we get a lot of videos, so I don't know where they're coming from. But
where to look, yeah.
Yeah, I like to answer questions. It's always fun. Yeah. So anyway, we hope this was helpful. Hope you pass it along. If you're new to this, subscribe, and you'll know what's coming up, and you also are going to be able to tune into the rest of surprises that we have out there. Check out independenthomeschool.com if you want more information, some basic 2 hours of video on how we would set up homeschool. You might find that helpful. Anyway,